Hey mini enthusiasts, how you doing? So welcome to 2019. I think this is the first kit update of 2019, and this could be interesting because you might notice I'm not in the video. That's because I couldn't make it down to Mark's, so Mark carried on with the kit build, and I grabbed the footage off him. So this will be interesting. I'm narrating through something I wasn't actually there, so I have been down, I have seen Mark since, so I've got an idea of what was going on anyway. So as you can see at the moment, Mark's just taken to stripping the front end back down again. So we had it all sort of clamped in place before, made sure everything aligned, lined everything up with the bonnet and the scuttle, and once we knew it fitted all right, we just put some marks on there so we can sort of clean it all up, and then refit it back in the same place, ready for welding. So at the moment Mark's just doing the kind of boring job, which is going along all the panels where the weld joints are and just cleaning them up, cleaning the protective paint off the panels. Like I say, all these front end panels are heritage panels. Probably one advantage of the Magnum panels actually is the paint's not as thick on them and it's quite easy to clean off, whereas these heritage panels, they're painted pretty well. That black coating they put on them, yeah, it comes off okay, but you use like an abrasive wheel, and it comes off relatively easy. Not as easy as the Magnum panels though. So it's quite surprising once you start looking at it how many sort of surfaces you have to clean up. So we'll be spot welding most of the front end, so like I say, it's very important with spot welding that both surfaces, so that's inside, outside, and the joint between the two surfaces you're welding has to be spotlessly clean. Make sure there's no grease or any contaminants on there, and you'll get a better spot weld. So like I say, it is a bit of a boring job, but preparation is everything really. If you get this bit right, the spot welds go on nicely, you don't blow any holes in the metal, and it just makes life so much easier when you get to the welding part. And Mark here is using a 100mm strip disc for cleaning off the paint on the surfaces that are going to be welded. Strip discs are pretty good, they're very useful actually. What they do is they'll strip off paint and filler without actually damaging the metal. So you could use a wire wheel, but a wire wheel will mark the metal, and also when you come to paint it, it will leave marks in the metal itself. Whereas these strip discs, I'm not sure what they're made of actually, but they clean off paint absolutely perfectly. They'll grind away filler as well, and they don't damage the metalwork behind it at all, so they leave the metalwork pretty much perfect and ready for paint. So they don't cost a great deal, but definitely worth getting if you've got to strip some paint or filler off before welding something. And Mark here is just cleaning all the panels. He's using brake cleaner. Brake cleaner is a favourite of mine. I use it for pretty much everything. Buy it in 5 litre containers. Yeah, it's great for cleaning up parts, especially good for cleaning up brakes. That's what it's made for. But it's pretty good for cleaning up panels as well. Yeah, just about anything. Kitchen floor. The wife uses it quite a bit. It doesn't leave any residue behind, so you can kind of use it as panel wipe as well. So yeah, Mark's just cleaned up all the panels, ready for spraying them with weld through primer. So again, weld through primer, you don't have to use it, but it is very, very good at protecting the panel from corroding in the future. So it's like a bit of an insurance against corrosion, really. Um, it can be a little bit expensive. It's a high concentration of zinc. So there's lots of zinc in the primer, and that helps give it conductance so you can weld through it. It dries very quickly, so you don't have to wait a long time for it to dry before welding, but you do need to make sure it has dried, because you'll soon find out if you weld it straight away, it catches fire pretty well. But it flashes off pretty quickly anyway, and you can continue to weld, and it just gives you an extra layer of protection rather than having bare metal. When you weld two panels together, it's an obvious place for corrosion. These zinc weld through primer will protect the metal panels. And Mark has just moved on now to removing the brace bars that we fitted on both sides prior to cutting out the inner and outer seals and floor pan. The brace bars are there just to make sure nothing moves, and when you're taking out, certainly when you're doing anything more than just outer seals, so as soon as you start doing the inner seal, you should really put brace bars in there. And if you're taking out cross members and things like that, then you need more sort of diagonal braces and braces across the car, as well as the door aperture. So Mark's just taken out the brace on that near side, offside, and moving around to the near side now to take out the brace on this side. So KITT was braced with its 1-inch box section steel. I think it's 2mm thick, and it's welded on the three sides that you can get to the inner door aperture. And then once you remove them, it's just a case of grinding back those welds flat back to the panel, and then later on we'll just give that a very thin skim of filler just to cover up any sort of grinding marks on there. So now that brace bar's out of the way, Mark is just grinding back the welds from the inner door step. So we fitted a repair section there. Was actually a magnum panel, that one. So inner door step, magnum panel. It fitted fine, to be honest. No issues really. So Mark's just grinding flat the weld line for the repair section. And I'm quite amazed actually, Mark grinds back the welds with a 1mm disc on the angle grinder. I'd usually use a flat wheel. A flat wheel doesn't get into the corners very, very well though. So Mark uses a 1-inch cutting disc, which works really well, but you've got to be quite careful with the grinder because they can be lethal, those things. And we're just moving on now to fitting the door on the offside there. So the doors Mark is using are later MPI doors. They're genuine heritage doors as well, so they are around about £500 each. They are very, very expensive, but they are the later MPI doors, and the reason we're using them is they have side impact protection, so they have an additional sort of additional strengthening built in, like a strengthening bar which runs from the front to the back of the door. So I would recommend actually, if you're going to replace the doors, if you're going to buy new ones, it's definitely worth buying the later MPI ones, just because it gives a bit more side impact protection. And Mark's obviously having a bit of trouble removing the old hinges here. I think he's reverted to the angle grinder for getting them out. So generally, if the screwdriver or spanner doesn't work, then it's a bit of heat. And then it's either oxyacetylene or the angle grinder. Surprisingly enough, nothing gives into the angle grinder. So I can't say I've replaced many doors, but I think these hinges are probably always a problem when you come to taking them out, because yeah, I'm sure those retaining screws that hold them in and the bolts corrode pretty badly. And hopefully the second door is not quite as bad, although it looks like he's having fun with it. So I'd recommend with anything seized like that, even if it's not seized actually, if you're dismantling anything that is rusty or certainly been together for a few years, just apply some penetrating oil to it before you try and remove it. WD-40 is kind of the go-to name, but there's duck oil, there's various different penetrating oils there. WD-40 probably isn't the best, but it's kind of time proven, to be honest. People have used it forever and a day, so it does the job, it does it fine. The only thing I would say with any penetrating oil, it does take time to work, so there's no point spraying a little bit on there and then going straight at it trying to remove the seized nut, bolt, screw or whatever it is you're trying to do. Spray it on there, give it 10 minutes or even 15 minutes and maybe reapply it, and then try removing it. If you try and remove it straight away, you've not allowed the penetrating oil to penetrate into the threads, and it will be a bit pointless really. Then finally, if the penetrating oil doesn't work, then generally a bit of heat helps. So Mark's just refitting the hinges there just so he can get the door lined up. So Mark has actually ordered a set of new hinges for the car. They are horrendously expensive. I think they're £200 for a set of 4 hinges, so £50 each. That's for genuine hinges. And I think non-genuine ones, they're still pretty pricey as well. I'm sure they're about 100, 120, 130 pounds for a full car set. So Mark just had to re-drill those holes there because the main hinge panel, which is original, we've not changed that. That's the original panel. Didn't line up perfectly with the flitch panel, so we lined the flitch panel up with all the markings on the car and lined it up perfectly with everything else, but even then the holes were in slightly different places. It's probably in about a millimetre, maybe 2 millimetres out. But again, that inner flitch panel was a Magnum panel, so yeah, it didn't fit fantastic that, but we could only get those flitch panels from Magnum, get heritage ones at the time. I'm not sure why. I don't know whether they do them. I'm sure they do, but they were out of stock anyway. So what was quite interesting here is obviously, as you can see, lots of head scratching going on. Mark's trying to get the door lined up, and it just wouldn't line up. It almost looked like the door might have been twisted. So we're not quite sure yet, but it was kind of in at one end and out at the other. You would hope it's not twisted, being a heritage door, but you never know. It certainly was a pain for Mark to fit. He was texting me while he was doing this, actually, sending me photos, and yeah, he was having a really difficult time trying to get that lined up perfectly. I think he probably spent, it was a good hour and a half just on this side alone, getting the door to fit correctly. And of course, this is the time you want to be doing it now. You want to get everything lined up and fitting perfectly before you even think about painting the car, because as you can see, when you're moving stuff around, manipulating it, levering it, trying to get it in place, when you've got paint on there, you just end up damaging the paint. So Mark's nearly done with the door now, but I think you get the message. It was certainly not easy to get lined up. And just while I was mentioning Weld 3 primer earlier, we also use etch primer on any of the welded surfaces, anywhere we've ground back, just to protect it from rust until the shell gets painted. And yeah, etch primer, you should be using it on anywhere where there's bare metal. But again, where you've ground back anything, a bit of etch primer on there just to protect it from rust is really, really useful. So as you can see here, actually, Mark's just unboxing. That's a brand new heritage door panel. Doesn't look like it's been out the box before. And you'll see Mark in a moment. What was really disappointing is, although this door panel was brand new, it was out the packaging. You can see it's in the plastic shrink wrapped. The door had been repaired on the back and the front edges. So I don't know if you'll see it on the video, but there was painted lines a good sort of 5-6 inches into the door, and you can see where it looks like it's probably been dollied out. Even looks like there might have been a little bit of filler up around the door handle. So that's really disappointing, actually. These doors are 500 quid each, and they're heritage door panels. And do you know what? If we had more time, you'd probably send them back, but I don't know. What do you do? I mean, the car's going to be painted anyway, and it looked like they had sorted out any imperfections in the panel, but you could certainly see that door had been repaired, which, like I say, when you're paying £500 for a door, you expect it perfect, and you'd expect actually their quality control that if something wasn't right, or if it did get damaged during manufacture, it would just go on the scrap metal bin and then make a new door. But disappointingly, that's the one we ended up with. But the only good bit was it fitted absolutely perfectly. So considering the time and the problems Mark had on the other side, you can see Mark fitting up the door here. I think he fits it once, takes it off, puts a shim in, and that was pretty much spot on then. It lined up the whole way around the door and fitted up perfectly with the A panel. So yeah, that's how it goes. And you almost think if we sent that door back, got another one, would it fit as well? I don't know. So hindsight's a great thing, isn't it? So So we're just approaching the end of this video now. So at this point, Mark's obviously got both doors fitted up, got the alignments sorted out. So in the next video, it will be just refitting the panels on the front end. Again, getting them lined up again, but it's much easier this time because we marked them all up. And then it's just a case of welding it all back on, which hopefully we'll be able to do most of it by spot welding. So spot welding is probably the best, neatest way of doing it, but you have to be able to get the spot welder into the joints to get it there. So if you've made it this far, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll get another update out to you soon. Cheers, have a good week, bye.